Hi, I want to talk about my son who just turned 13 this past weekend, and we went up to go see his grandma and grandpa up in the High Sierras, up the 395 to go visit so he can do some fishing with his grandpa and of course myself and my mom. But this journey, this trip, turned out to be a very special trip for many reasons, and still fighting a little soreness on my shoulders. But anyways, what made this trip very special is it's about a 7.5, 8 hour drive up, and we got to talk along the way, and it's amazing what's on our kids' minds. And I'm going to actually post a forum topic about maybe spending 10 minutes and asking 12 questions to our kids, because I had such an amazing conversation with him on the way up to Mammoth. And one of the questions, actually several of the questions that were just fascinating to hear from a 13-year-old mind is, you know, I'm 44 and he's 13, and I told him, what would life be like if he was 30 years older today? And he thought about it for a second, and he says, okay, 30 years from now, Dad, things are going to be much different. And it's amazing because his optimism was a little changed. He normally is a very optimistic kid, and he's very humble and positive on almost everything that we talk about. But this was a very different conversation. He was concerned. He said that life is going to be a little harder 30 years from now when he's 43. And I asked him in what way, and he said, Dad, there's going to be less resources. It's going to be harder to have quality food. Life as we know it is going to be harder to find a job, harder to make money, in his opinion. And I found that very strange for such a. It was a very somber conversation. It was very amazing. I just kept asking him. I said, so life's going to be harder. He said, resources are going to be more scarce. We definitely will have some alternative fuel, and we won't be relying on gasoline anymore. That's for sure. He knew that. He also talked about things that were very interesting about just the amount of resources that were available. And since we were going on a fishing trip, he said that fishing is going to be definitely a different 30 years from now as well. So we had another conversation about religion, and he does believe in God, and he believes in heaven, and he also believes in another place other than heaven for people who don't live good lives. And he definitely has a spiritual side of him, which was fascinating for me to hear, that he believes in doing good and getting good. By doing good, you receive good. And he talked a lot about single dad, and he feels that we're doing something good for other dads. And we talked about UFOs, because he was staring in the sky, and he noticed such an array of stars in the sky as we were driving. So I had to ask him about, did he believe in UFOs, which of course he did, and he shared with me that it's just too impossible to believe that we're the only planet that sustains life. And that came from a 13-year-old. So I was very amazed by that, and I was very proud of him. And I also asked him about 30 years from now, is he going to be married? And he said probably so. And I asked him if he was going to have any children. And he paused for a second, and he thought about it, and he says, at least one. And I thought that was really nice. And he says, maybe two. And he goes, at least I want to have a son so I could take him fishing like you take me fishing, which was a very proud moment in my life, because I just felt like this was definitely a very great moment for us to spend some quality time together driving up. And no radio, no iPod, no distractions. Finally, I did talk to him a little bit about Grandma and Grandpa, and this was something that it had a reoccurring theme. My father just turned 70 just this past summer, and we talked about life and death, and about my 30 years from now, and his 30 years from now. And we also talked about grandparents and how important they are to appreciate them today and everything that they are today. And although it was a tough subject about life and death, in our own mortality, I explained to him that someday I'm going to go. And obviously it's not a fun conversation to have, but it was amazing how he took it all in, and in terms of time and place, and where everyone has their time and place. And that's when the conversation came up about heaven. And he definitely loves his grandparents very, very much. And it's something that he was understanding and coping with the fact that they're not going to be here forever. Not that they're in any type of health danger, but of course 30 years from now is a long time, and for both of us, including the grandparents. So I thought it was very interesting that we talked about that, and dealing with the reality of life and death was a very interesting topic. So I had some really great conversations, and what my son brought to my attention was our teenagers are concerned about our world, and is it going to be a safer place? Is it going to be a healthier place? And we talked about jobs that he was definitely not going to be or have. He said he's not going to be a policeman. He's not going to be a fireman. He's not going to be a truck driver. He gave me a list of a lot of things he's not going to be. We still haven't figured out what he wants to be, but that was part of the drive anyways. We played a lot of what do you want to do. And in summary, I just want to say that I had a great conversation with him talking about the future. And being a single dad, I feel that our teenagers are very much in tune with what's going on in the world. And I thought I'd share that with you. And it'd be interesting to hear your comments on you talking to your kids about the world topics, their family topics, and their own personal topics. So I look forward to your responses. Thanks.